Hi, mystery writers. Welcome. How's your writing going? I have been so busy with my book launch that I have to admit that it's been slow going with my next novel. So leave a comment and tell us where you are with your current writing project. Today I want to talk about some time-saving tips to help you when you're actually writing your story. And because starting a novel is a balance between brainstorming those ideas, and structure, because especially in mysteries, we need a lot of structure to plan out how we're going to meet those reader expectations for a great mystery. When you start with your story idea, your head is filled with scenes and snippets of dialogue and settings and events, and it doesn't take long to feel overwhelmed. So all those elements can send you scrambling for your story, the thing you're going to write, and it's easy to get lost along the way. You may write too much or add too many characters or leave your characters floating in space, and there's just so many story problems that can come up. But like any project, writing a novel works best when you plan. Once you do the planning, writing goes faster and you won't get stuck, and your second draft will concentrate on edits rather than rewriting the story. So when you're getting started, I think it helps to start like a one-sentence storyline. You're just going to condense your story idea into one sentence, and it's short. It's like 25, 30 words. You want to mention the protagonist's role, not necessarily their name, just their role, the situation, and the challenge. So here's an example for Martin Cruz Smith's Gorky Park. A Moscow homicide detective, that's the role, investigates a bizarre triple murder and runs afoul of the KGB and FBI. So once you kind of get that condensed, distilled version of your story down, you can keep it in mind as you follow the next steps, because each step grows from the storyline and is part of the overall whole. You certainly want to flesh out your characters and cast your whole novel because you want to get them ready to be in any situations once you start writing your story. You can list those physical traits just so they don't have glowing auburn hair in chapter 3 and dark tresses in chapter 20. And these details will keep you straight wherever you are in the story. And they're especially helpful for supporting and minor characters, because you may have 100 or more pages between one time when they appear in your story and the next time they appear in your story. So you want to make sure you do have those details correct. They also help if you're like me and you don't write linearly. I don't write chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. I may jump ahead to a scene that's vivid in my head, and I'll write that scene. And so if I have the characters there in my character Bible, it's easy to put them in, even if I've jumped ahead in the story as far as writing is concerned. Many writing software programs have a character development component. You just want to make sure that you do go beyond the physical details to probe your character's psyche. The more important they are in the story, the more you need to know about that character. Readers love rich detail, and what makes a story a page turner is characters who have depth and respond to unpredictable events, and they respond in unpredictable ways. So you want to build a deep, rich background for your main characters. The protagonist, the antagonist, love interest, sidekick, mentor, whoever your main characters are in your story. And knowing their big life trauma and their quirks and unique speech patterns, their pet peeves, their fears, and their one big flaw. These are all things you should know about those main characters. So as you write, you'll be able to dish out the details as needed when your characters interact, because a lively character makes your story interesting. Okay, and then the story world. You definitely want to know about your story world. You want to know the world where your characters interact, and floor plans and maps help you pinpoint where characters are in this story. And your story will benefit from details of urban life, country expanse, or your brave new sci-fi world. So you want to know the customs and the basic laws of your world. And in historical fiction, you want to create as much backdrop as you can, as well as fantasy and science fiction. So mystery can appear in all these genres. So getting your world right is really important to bringing your reader into the story and making them feel like they're there. And you'll be able to drop details in without boring your readers with huge information dumps, which they'll just skip. So drop in details as your characters move through the world. Your readers want a good, detail-rich story, so avoid those long descriptive passages or paragraph after paragraph of the history of your fantasy world. Just move the story forward. Set your characters in that world and make them move. And as you do that and you drop in the details, your readers will understand where they are in the story. They'll understand the culture. They'll understand the setting without you having to do some kind of long narrative description. So you get those details in, and then get your characters to interact with those details. That's the best way to bring your reader into that story world. And then, of course, you want to write scene by scene, because they are the building blocks of your novel. So brainstorming, I love brainstorming, and I think brainstorming really helps when you're thinking about your scenes. Just brainstorm every scene you can think of in your story, and you can collect them the old way on 3x5 cards, or use a software collection, a software solution to collect those scenes. I highly recommend Plotter for doing that. Plotter is a software. And you want to start with the main points of your story: the opening, the inciting incident, the midpoint, the climax, and the conclusion. You want to get those scenes pretty solid, and then you can fill in the scenes in between, say, the opening and the inciting incident, or the inciting incident and the midpoint. And at this point, don't worry too much about structure. Just create your scenes one by one as you think of them. And the beauty of 3x5 cards, or the scene cards in Scrivener, for example, or the way that you set up scenes in Plotter, is that you can move them around. Because you may find that the scene works better in a different spot in your story. Okay, once you kind of have this brainstorm of scenes for your story, then you can start thinking about the story structure itself. You want to put those scenes in sequence. because story structure is the container for your scenes, and then you can create a sequence for your scenes. This scene happens, then this scene happens, then this scene happens. So no matter what structure you use, from 3 acts to 4 acts to story beats to save the cat beats, whatever story structure you use, that's where you can organize your scenes. And of course you want to organize them so that you're raising the stakes and raising the tension in the story. There are a lot of programs out there to help you with this, so you may want to investigate that if you haven't found one that works. One of the things that happens is, as you arrange those scenes that you brainstorm and start putting them into the right place in the story structure, you may find holes in the story where you need to add scenes. On the other hand, you may find that some scenes don't fit in the overall story structure, so you have to let them go. So once you have your scenes in order, you're ready to write. You have the whole story planned out ahead of time. So this is how planning helps save you time, because knowing your story, the characters and the setting, and the story flow and sequence allows you to concentrate on creating that individual scene once you begin writing. So experienced writers know characters are apt to do and say the unexpected when you're writing. So you can think of those scene notes and story structure as guidelines to keep you focused. They really help when those characters want to take the story somewhere else. You really have to rethink whether that's an appropriate action for your character or not, and what the consequences for the rest of the story would be if your character performs an unexpected action. But having that plan really helps you keep focused, and it's your guideline to where the story's going. I like to think of writing as, from the beginning, I'm writing toward the midpoint. And then from the midpoint, I'm writing toward the climax. Because if you think at the beginning of writing toward the climax, you may rush your story. So just take your time and work it scene by scene, because you're leading your reader through the story journey scene by scene. They don't know what the climax is, so give them the attention that you need to focus on that scene right now to make it interesting and exciting, and then to the next scene, which is interesting and exciting, so that you're keeping your reader with you along the journey. So planning helps you get to the end. Concentrate on telling. You don't have to wonder what comes next. You keep all the details straight. You know what physical characteristics or personality traits are with your characters, and what the setting feels like, and where your characters are in the story. Planning really helps reduce rewrites after you finish your first draft, so that, as I said before, you get to focus on editing and making the prose flow rather than trying to rewrite the story. Another thing planning does is it keeps you from writing yourself into a corner and then having to restructure everything that comes afterward. You really want it, that big overview of your story really helps you keep from getting stuck like that. And the thing I like about planning is it keeps you in the writing flow. When you sit down to write your scene, you know where you are in the story, And your main task is to make that scene come alive because you know where it fits in the story. So planning helps you know your story in depth, and writing goes faster when you have those elements in place. And once you get to the end, you'll be happy you planned at the beginning. Okay, I hope that helps. That's pretty much all I had to say for today. I really do think that planning helps us as mystery writers, because with all the work that we do for characters, can't talk, I have to slow down a little. With all the work that we do on our characters, mysteries are plot driven. And so knowing that plot, knowing where you are in the story as you're writing, helps you write faster. All right, I'd love to hear from you where you are in your story progress, and I'll see you next week.